Hi, Linny.
Hi, Nancy.
Welcome to episode 32 of the Front Porch Book Club.
The Front Porch Book Club is a podcast that meets twice a month.
We like to dig deep into the relationship between characters and the worlds they live in.
Grab your book and iced tea and join us on the front porch.
Linny, in this episode, we're doing something a little different than we've done in the past.
I know, and I'm excited about it.
Yep. We've invited a friend to join us on the front porch to talk about the Nightingale. And it's kind of like we have our own little mini book club that we're going to conduct today as our episode.
I know. And I think it's different for us, but I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Because it's just us girls and we're talking about a book that had to do with two sisters. We're going to have Jona Green with us. I know Jona from quite a long time ago, and she was such a fun coworker of mine, and we became friends. And now she's a financial advisor for Edward Jones in Willow Street in Lancaster County in Pennsylvania. She's a wife and she has two teen boys. So I'm excited that she was able to join us and be a part of our second drop on the Nightingale.
Excellent. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the front porch, Jona.
So excited to be here.
We're so excited that you could join us. It's been a while.
I'm a sweet tea girl deep in my heart.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah.
That is a little unusual for Pennsylvania, isn't it?
I know. I have a Southern grandma.
Oh, okay. That explains it.
But definitely, I'm a lot of lemon, though.
Oh.
Yeah. I like a lot of lemon in my sweet tea. And right now, it's a great time in Lancaster County because it's meadow tea season. And so at Amish stands and stuff like that, like the meadow mint, it's soft. You can brew it into tea. And so that's really a great treat right now.
I have never heard of that.
Oh, yeah. Meadow tea.
Is it just regular mint or is it a specific variety of mint?
To me, it's regular mint. I don't know what everyone's doing in the rest of the world. They call it meadow tea because it grows and it will spread. Like if you try and put it into a flower patch, you are going to have all mint real soon.
Yeah, that's definitely mint. Definitely does that. I plant mint every year just in a pot so that it stays contained. But I love mint.
It gets sort of a greenish tint to it, but it's not as dark as when you brew black tea. I think part of it is that you brew it from fresh mint.
Mm-hmm. Today I'm drinking coffee. That's what I'm having on the front porch.
I love it. Coffee's important too. Don't discount coffee.
That's exactly right. This is an early morning front porch recording. So I need my coffee. Welcome, Jona. Thank you so much for joining us.
I would hang out with Linda in any dark alley, so this is way better. I would just follow her into any burning building or across traffic. No worries. She is the best. And I am definitely at a disadvantage not getting to work with her all the time.
Oh, so you guys need to talk about, you guys need to talk a little bit about how you know each other.
Oh my goodness. Well, what is it? A long time ago. In a galaxy far, far away, right? A couple decades.
Holden just graduated. We came home when he was 18 months old. So it's 17 years.
Yeah.
Terrible, isn't it, as moms, how you're like, well, how old was the baby I was holding when we were doing that? Mm-hmm. Who was little? Did I have a diaper bag when that happened?
Now, how long did you guys work together?
5 years, like that.
Yeah.
But thank goodness for Facebook and social media will keep you in touch, which is great for people that you can still see what's going on in life. I really love that.
It's a great way to stay in touch.
You know, at the end of the day, it got me here to be able to talk about this because I was like, oh, I love that book.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you reached out. It's been fun to see you through the years. And I feel the same way. I feel like if you and I lived closer together, we would have a blast.
Dangerous.
Yes,
absolutely.
We would have so much fun. You were in education 17 years ago, and now you're at Edward Jones doing financial planning. What led you to that?
It really was just a great next step for me. I was sort of at the top of what I had looked to accomplish in education. And so this was a great move to be able to, I feel like, still be in education. It's just a much smaller classroom. And I love making this field accessible to people. So it's super fun to me.
Accessible seems like a good word for you because you're very accessible as far as your personality and your character. So I can see how you excel with that.
Yeah, I bet in that kind of financial advising, you do feel like you are educating. You're taking complicated subjects and making it digestible and understandable to your clients, which is wonderful.
And that's one thing that's good moving from education to financial advising is I'm used to looking at the board look in their eyes when they don't care how deep I go into this anymore. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about something else now.
Oh yeah, that look. I know that
Talk
look.
to me more about your goals. What's the purpose of this money? Because that's more engaging to people than how I'm going to allocate it and what the PE ratios are. Ugh, boring.
Oh, that's fabulous. Linda and I both put out a question on Facebook about who has read The Nightingale and who loved it. And Jona, you mentioned that you liked the book. What made you pick up this book to begin with?
I realized that I was reading a lot of thick information for work, all kinds of technical things, and also stuff, nerdy things about doing this job better, crucial conversations and things like that. So I wanted to have something that was sort of like a palate cleanser. And also, I really got involved with a group who was doing books. I have a friend who posts the 6 or 7 books she reads every month on Facebook.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
And with a little synopsis, which is great because I love reading, but I'm also never really sure where to start. And I have a lot of guilt about having not read all of the classics. My brothers read The Count of Monte Cristo and all of those. And I think, oh, I should go back and maybe revisit Wuthering Heights. So this came up through an online book club, and it was a great opportunity for me. I love a female-driven story. I'm a boy mom, and so getting to sort of dive into women, that was really one of the compelling parts about this book is how integral both of their roles are. One was so nurturing, the older sister, who I'm an oldest sister, so I sort of identified with the one who's going to do the right thing and make the right choices and get married to the right guy and stay home and all of those things. But also the younger rebel sister who's been sort of a problem child her whole life, but it's what gives her the skill set to make these amazing things happen when her world falls apart. I was really just drawn in by them. I have to confess, I'm an Audible girl. I can overclock it a little bit, but this was so beautifully read. I was really glad to have someone read the words to me, especially with some of the French stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I knew how it was pronounced, which I appreciated. I was a huge reader as a child. Flashlight under the covers at night. I was always in trouble for doing too much of that. And then I really got away from it. I tell people that grad school kind of killed my reading. I would turn away from billboards. Like, you just process so much information with your eyes. I couldn't look at cereal boxes and stuff. And so I'm really glad to have a way to digest books again, because I have a big appetite for that. But I don't have a lot of, I need to work it into my life that I just sit. People talk about beach reads, and I was like, oh, I sleep a lot on the beach, but I guess you could read. That's a possibility.
Oh, I love it. Linda, how about you? Why did you pick up this book?
Because you told me to.
Well, there you go. I like it.
I love that your sister made you read this book. That's such a strong theme in this.
It is a sisterly book. And I do suggest some books for the book club.
You absolutely do.
But Nancy is the reader. I didn't grow up reading, did not like reading. I kind of have to force myself. However, as an adult after grad school, I have found a joy in reading. But Nancy exposes me to different things other than what I typically read. Mm-hmm. And so this book club has been good for me in exploring types of books I wouldn't have read otherwise.
I think that is the good thing about book clubs. If you get with a group of other people, they have other interests, other networks that they're tapped into. I'm a member of a book club. I think I joined them just about a year ago. They were an existing book club and they had an opening and invited me. And I've really been exposed to quite a number of books otherwise I would have never read.
Yeah, you had several people that had suggested this book to you, right, Nance?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I had never read Kristen Hanna before. I'd certainly seen her in bookstores, heard about her. when a number of friends said, oh, this is a book that I really enjoyed, I thought, okay, so there's a reason to read her. I mean, I'd kind of been wondering about her as an author.
I liked that it was a French perspective on World War II also.
Yes.
My grandfather was a fighter pilot in World War II, and so I know some of those parts of it, but looking at it from a French perspective was different.
Yeah, and a female perspective.
Where was your grandfather a fighter pilot? Was he in Europe?
He was in the European theater. He was in the 27th Fighter Group in the Army Air Corps at that time.
Okay.
Left behind because there was 3 German 109s on him, and they were like, we got to get out of here. The squadron was out of fuel. And so he shot down one of those planes and I guess intimidated the others off of him is what it was. He was out of ammunition, but came up on them like he wasn't. And those German pilots decided they weren't going to die today. And so they just peeled off and went back. And the rest of the squadron knew how much fuel he would have had. He was able to stay low enough to conserve fuel. Like, it is absolutely a story of your guts getting you through. And we didn't know this story for years. It wasn't until like we as the grandchildren had school projects that we could get him to really talk about it. And so he stopped for fuel on the island of Vise, which I think is off of Italy, and made it back just in time for them to be toasting his memory. The story goes that the first thing he did was slug the closest pilot to him. 39 P-38s, Lockheed Lightnings, went out that day, and 27 came back.
Wow.
So my grandfather was one of the 27, but my grandmother got word that her pilot was missing in action. And she just had a piece about it, that he was going to be fine. She just knew that everything was okay. It was 3 weeks. Like, now, if it takes 3 minutes for someone to text you back, you're perturbed about it, right? But it took 3 weeks until he could get word to her that he was okay.
Oh my goodness.
What a story.
Our family celebrates June 10th is Palesti Day. They went out to shoot up the oil fields in Palesti. It was Romania, is where the Germans had oil refining or something like that.
That's an incredible story.
And so it was really interesting to read this book with that through line.
Yeah.
I think too that there's hero stories, right? And of course, my brothers and my uncles, the hero, our pilot. But also, I really feel like the hero, his wife, who waited at home and kept things going. He played poker to be able to send money home to her. My grandfather was a good poker player. So, yeah, because he also had gotten a little trouble. So he wasn't receiving flight pay, was part of his punishment for what had happened before. And so, really, lots of great stories from World War II.
He sounds like an interesting
Oh, yeah,
character.
he was wild. Those things, to be able to tie into some of that in this book, I didn't know about billeting. I had no idea. I knew that was a thing in like the Revolutionary War.
Right.
Yeah. And I thought, well, of course, it's not like they went in and checked into the local motel.
Mm-hmm.
They lived with families who were there.
Yeah, this really is, I think, an untold story, at least a story I hadn't encountered before. What about the women who were left behind in occupied countries, and this being France specifically? What were their lives like? What decisions did they have to make? What dangers did they face, and how did they respond to them, and how they are heroic in their own right, which felt like a new story to me.
It was great. I was very compelled through this whole thing. And I have one sister, and so it was interesting to feel out those roles and things like that. And I do think you get sort of, I don't know about judging, but you do try and insert yourself into the decisions. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not into the character, but, you know, if this is what I was left with, what would I do?
Right.
Yeah. So what would you have done?
I want to think I would be brave, but I'm like, you know, also not a bad option. Stay in the basement, see what you can scrounge for food, keep your head down.
That's what I was wondering. Where did you see yourself in with these sisters? Did you?
Yeah, 100% not climbing over the mountains. I'd be like, I'm in more of a support role here. Do you need some fundraising? Can I make you a cake? Would you like to have a pack snacks? And like, I think I would be good at like running the hotel along the route of the Underground Railroad or whatever the operation is, like lying to people to protect my family, to be evasive and things like that. I could handle that part, but I am not a climb the mountains girl. I'd be like, you're going to need to find somebody else. Maybe prayer. Do you need a prayer warrior? I'm good for that.
Love it.
Now your sister, because you said you're the oldest sister. So in this story, you're more like the older sister.
She would be the rebel.
She would be the rebel. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And I would be 100% judging about that. Like, how terrible. Why can't you just be more responsible, respectful, all of those things, keep it together? And she would be out saving the world. Yeah.
Oh, my golly. So you saw a lot of parallels here in this book.
I think, too, like, isn't that biblical sisters like Mary and Martha, right? Like, there's so many things.
Yes. Okay, so now I want to talk about Beck. He was the first German officer billeted with Vianne. So Vianne seemed to be attracted to him and seemed to maybe see some good in him. She thought in some ways that he was a good man. What do you think? Was Beck a good man? Was he not a good man? Did he deserve his fate? Jona, why don't you go first?
I was kind of in love with him too.
Were you? Okay.
Okay. I'm interested in your perspective because I saw him as pure evil. So you go.
I know. Well, see, and that's the thing is that, like, I think he was, no, I don't want to say a victim of his circumstances, but I don't think that he had full agency in what happened. And I think that he tried to make it as easy as he could on the family and things like that. But also the tension of not betraying them. Do you know what I mean? Like, to protect them by holding the line as a soldier and an officer.
Mm-hmm. So for you were like, look, he was doing what he could, and maybe he was a good guy, and it was the circumstances that conspired against him.
Right.
But it seemed like it was a little bit more than that. You liked him.
I think that overall he was a man of integrity for what he could have taken advantage of in that situation. When doors are closed, when no one knows what's happening, the things that he could have forced, with his physical force, and he didn't.
And in contrast, the other German soldier that billeted with Vianne, he did take advantage.
Right.
Oh, he was horrible.
Okay, Lenny, what do you think about Beck?
Well, okay. There were some times that he did hold back. I recognize that. There were some times that he was kind, but no.
Not enough.
Not enough for me. Because of him, my best friend got deported.
Right.
There wouldn't have been too much nicety between us. I didn't like him from the beginning, really. I had a very strong opinion about him. But I have that historical perspective and what his regime is about. And she didn't have that. I see him through the lens of a Nazi, and she's seeing him in a different kind of lens because it's very early in the war.
I love the way that Kristen Hanna wrote that character and the decisions that he made, because I felt that it was very ambiguous who he was and what he was about. She wrote it in some ways that you could feel there was some sexual tension between them. And then she wrote it other ways that, yeah, he is part of the Nazi machine. And because of that, he is doing things that are morally reprehensible. Yet he's also going out of his way and doing some things for Vianne and her family that are contrary to what he's being told to do. So maybe he's kind of a little heroic, but then she doesn't allow you to settle firmly in your mind one way or another. His fate, spoiler alert, that Vianne, the very person who had a lot of empathy or attraction to him, ends up being the one who kills him.
Right.
Which I thought was a very interesting choice for that author to make.
Right. I've been reading other books or there's other stories that I'm like, this is the person who should get to kill them. Because I don't want them to just drown in the river. I want this character to have the power over that situation, the revenge.
Did you feel that way with this because you liked the guy?
Well, I was worried that it was going to be Isabel who would do it. And I really felt like it was part of the circle that it had to be Vianne.
Okay. Well, here's the thing about this guy. I really thought that, and I can't think of the word right now, so help me out, ladies. When someone is victimized, kidnapped, whatever, and then the person that is under their control starts having a relationship, starts trusting them,
Yeah, the Stockholm syndrome.
Yes, thank you. So when I was reading this, that was what I was thinking about.
Right.
And that she is being held captive by him. He is watching her. He knows what she's growing in her garden. He knows a lot, but there was something about him as being a powerful person that she starts identifying with him.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's why I thought of him as being so evil, because that was the lens of which I was viewing her relationship with him.
Mm-hmm. I also thought maybe there was a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome happening there. But Kristen Hanna, the way she wrote it, she doesn't allow us to stay there.
Right.
She really does show him doing kind things. He is married also, and he never acts on his apparent interest in Vianne. Vianne never betrays the love she has for her husband. They act with integrity in their marital lives.
But still, with the Stockholm Nancy, they bring little presents and gifts and they try to be nice. And here, I'm going to take you out. It's just enough that that relationship comes back a little bit, and that person who is in the power position gets what they want, because then they have this person that's adoring them, and that's what they want.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I do agree that this relationship, plus in the other interesting parts of this book, that there is this gray area. And she tries to show the morally complex situations that people put themselves in, and how it's not just this black and white Nazi versus the Europeans. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of gray in a lot of the books. I appreciate what you ladies are saying, but I did not like that.
Like, we know how the story ends, right?
Right.
At that point, like saying Nazi wasn't as loaded of a word as it even is now. I sort of reflect forward then as to what's happening in the world now that we are going to be judged by later on when we have more full knowledge of what was really happening. Do you know what I mean? Like where the pieces were.
Are you thinking of Ukraine?
Ukraine, and also other things too. Do you mean like even just when you're going through life, that you're never the villain in your own story, right?
Right.
Somebody else is like, that was really hurtful or whatever, and those things. And so to look through that lens to be able to see this. And I think too, this is an adult story, but there's a lot of kids involved in it and how they interact with those children to protect the children.
I thought that Isabel and the decisions she made about saving, of course, her best friend's child, and then the woman who she didn't know who just said, take my baby. But then she took it further and she decided, look, I am going to very actively take a role in saving whomever I can. Right. All of these children. And I'm not just going to save them. I'm going to do what I can now to document who they are safely so that they can be returned to their families. And what a heroic, selfless decision that she made, knowing that she was not just putting herself in danger, of course, but she had to think about her daughter as well. What would happen to her daughter should she be found out? I mean, it's just the choices people had to make.
I love that too. The responsibility she took to be sure that there would be something for them to return to.
Yes.
Were there any parts of the book when you read this that you thought, yeah, I would have done the same thing?
Grabbing that baby and those sort of things, taking my best friend's kids.
Yes.
I think that your experiences prepare you for what that is. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I really feel like until you have 4 kids, you're not really doing too much as a family, was kind of how I approached becoming a family. And I had 2 boys, and it was very clear to me that it would only be these 2 boys. Pregnancy was really rough on me. And so I thought, why did I grow up with this capacity for a house full of people, and I can only literally bear having 2 kids? What will be expected of me later that I have an opportunity to do that? What will life bring to me that I will have the ability to say yes to because of decisions that we've made? And I think that that's one thing. If both of these sisters were taking people over the Alps, there's nobody to save the babies. And if both of these sisters are saving babies, there's no one to take people over the Alps. The world needs both of those mindsets.
Yeah, and both of those mindsets is what got those women through that occupation.
Right.
Everybody has a different personality and different experiences, and they come to fruition based on just their personality or their life choices as to how they survive it.
I do have a lot of judgment on the dad sending them off.
What did you think about his fate and his decision ultimately to sacrifice himself for Isabel?
I think it was really redemptive, right? Do you know what I mean? Because
Yes.
there's so much judgment on what he did to sacrifice her at the beginning. I can feel better about him now. But I think too, his heart was broken. Like, yes, he didn't manage it in a good way. I've seen that in other relationships where one spouse is gone and the other one just is non-functional.
Right. And back then we didn't really even understand grief.
Right.
And he would have had really no tools. We didn't have the kind of counseling that we have available now, or just even in the people's general knowledge and recognition that grief is a thing, and some of the ways to address grief and what are typical reactions to grief. We had none of that.
Right. We have the benefit of history, right? To know how the story ends as far as the war, but to not put my 2022 expectations on what was happening a lifetime ago.
Absolutely.
Which I think, again, as an author, Kristen Hanna did a really good job of placing those characters in that world, operating with the knowledge they would have had, rather than portraying them in a way that they somehow knew too much. They really were operating with limited knowledge and information.
I think we need a movie club now. When this comes out, let's go see it together.
that would be fun. Yeah.
And don't you love how Elle and Dakota Fanning, sisters, are playing the sisters?
I think that's so cool.
This has been so much fun. I think the three of us could go on and on and on about this book, but Jona, you're a definitely reader, audiobooks. What are you reading that you would recommend?
I just finished Bel Canto from Ann Patchett.
Yes.
I had not read anything like that before. And so I am sort of digging into her in a bunch of ways now. I like her style.
Now, did she write The Dutch House?
Yes, that's what I'm getting next.
And that's set in Pennsylvania.
Oh, I'm excited about that then.
Well, okay. Ann Patchett, a big shout out for her.
I encountered the term chick lit in college with Jennifer Weiner. The book she wrote, Good in Bed, was something for me to read. I encountered that at exactly the right time. Like, it just was really empowering to read about a larger than average female hero. And it was a fun read. And so she's really the first time that I followed an author, and I think that's where I am now with Ann Patchett. But I'm also super excited about Kristen Hanna. I need to find more of her stuff because I hadn't really spent a lot of time in this genre before.
Yeah, excellent.
What are you guys reading now?
So I just finished The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. That is a very interesting book. The conceit of the book is that before a person dies, they may potentially have the opportunity to visit their own endless library where they can take a book off the shelf and live a different life based on them having made different decisions.
Midnight Library. I'm writing this down.
Yeah. At first, I thought, I'm not sure I love this book, but the deeper I got into it, the more I liked it. And I will say it's one of those books I keep thinking about. And for me, if I keep thinking about a book, it's forcing me to think through some aspects that are continuing to challenge me. And I do like that about a book.
That sounds interesting.
How about you, Lenny? Have you read anything lately?
Yeah, I'm doing a Christian fiction right now with an author I really like. And I'm halfway through our next book written by Van Jones. Love him. So
I'm doing my next book with my husband. We're going to listen to it at, like our pillow talk book for at night.
Aw.
Fun.
Liar's Poker.
That's a good book.
Well, this has been so much fun having you.
So great. Nancy, really nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
So nice to meet you too. Thank you.
I would say that that's one thing that really compelled me to the book club that I joined was you get to connect with people. When you're just like, hi, my name is Jona. I work as a financial advisor. I have boys. You don't necessarily have a lot of conversation, but what did you read recently gets people talking. And so especially when you have that shared thing, I think that that's a really great way. Do you know what I mean? Like if I had to move to a new place, I would find a book club right away.
It's a great way to connect with people and learn about what they're thinking about, what motivates them, what they think about life. It ends up being a deeper conversation, I think.
Yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jona.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh my golly. Did we not have fun with her?
That was so fun. It was so fun to meet her and talk about this book. I think she's absolutely right. There's something about talking about books because you get to learn more about a person, and it's not superficial, just talking about what do you do? Where do you live? I feel like I know a little of Jona's heart, even only just having met her.
Oh, I agree. It was so nice to reconnect. And I thought that was great. You know, I think if I ever go to a different place, I think that makes sense to join a book club and you get to know people and really who they are and things about them. So I think that's a great recommendation.
And how else would we have learned about her grandfather's amazing story of his service during the war?
Oh, very interesting. It doesn't surprise me. She's a flavorable kind of a person.
Oh, what kind of person?
I just made up a word.
Oh, okay.
I said flavorable. Like she has a lot of flavor.
Ah, okay. Got it.
And I think her family is that way too. It doesn't surprise me that she had a relative that's a little spicy himself in World War II. But loved talking to her and hearing her reflections on the book. Hey, up next, Van Jones, Beyond the Messy Truth. I'm excited about that. I'm halfway through it. Love it, love it, love it. That's going to be on our next episode.
You love Van Jones.
I do love Van Jones. That's true. Unfortunately, I have written to Van Jones. And I have not heard a response back, but, you know, I'm going to give him, okay, he can't join us. I still really like him. It's okay. Yeah, really like Van Jones.
That will be fun to talk about Beyond the Messy Truth next time. Our website is frontporchbookclub.com.
And our episodes come out twice a month, the first and third Wednesdays of each month.
That's great. Well, this was so fun, Lenny. See you next time.
Okay, bye, Nance.
Bye-bye.